Remember, for expert live tutoring in organic chemistry, email me at david.jeffrey422@gmail.com. Enjoy the video. Okay, so this is in fact the very last lecture or presentation that concludes preparing for organic chemistry. And I thought I really shouldn't leave the series without giving you some do's and don'ts to set you up again for success when you do end up taking the course. So that's the purpose of this presentation. Well, you know, people love to give advice. They really do. And in many cases, this advice is well-intentioned. The person is really trying to help you. In other cases, it's more sort of selfish and self-centered, and the person is trying to improve their status by showing you what they know that you don't. But either way, my strong recommendation to all students who are poised to take their first course in organic chemistry is forget the advice. Don't be rude, especially if it's well-intentioned. Thank the individual for their good intentions, but clearly indicate that you're going to make up your own mind. Let's take a look at some of this well-intentioned advice and why it's wrong, and why you really should disregard it. Organic chemistry, quote unquote, number one, is or isn't blank. Okay, everyone probably has a cousin in medical school, or a brother or a sister, or a friend, and that individual has told you, whatever you do, don't do X, or whatever you do, make sure you do Y. And maybe that was true for that individual at that time, in that particular class, with that particular professor. But there's so many variables involved between you and them. Why would you listen to some blanket statement that you need to do this or you must not do that? Just forget it. Just forget it. All right? It can't possibly help you, and it can only actually hurt you if you go into your course with someone else's parameters. Number two, organic chemistry is impossible unless you're a genius. This is not true. I personally know hundreds, if not thousands, of students and professors of organic chemistry that have mastered the subject and are by no means intellectual geniuses. They have at least an average intellect. What they do have in common, though, is very strong organizational skills, some interest in the subject, ranging from finding it interesting to absolutely loving it, which is my feeling about it. They also have something else in common. They learn not to listen to others' advice before finding out for themselves. Number three, organic chemistry requires a lot of memorization. No, it doesn't require a lot of memorization. Now, if you're determined to memorize your way through organic chemistry, no one can stop you. I can't stop you. Your professor can't stop you. Your friends can't stop you. Nobody can stop you. I would strongly discourage it, and I'm going to show you an alternative to memorizing. Now, memorizing, facts and information and content, Bloom's level 1, all right? There's a place for that, perhaps in your history course, maybe in your biology course. And I'm not putting down those subjects. Those subjects also require a great deal of analytical skills. Okay, but the role of memorization in organic chemistry is much exaggerated. And it actually comes from, like most rumors, it comes from a basis. There's a basis for it. Many years ago, before we knew what we know about reaction mechanisms, one almost had to memorize organic reactions because we didn't understand how they worked. Now we do. Reaction mechanism is what you want to spend your time knowing or learning, not memorizing individual reactions or facts. Organic chemistry is a weed-out class. What can I say? Your professors do not want to fail you. It reflects poorly on them, and it causes lots of problems. There are complaints or maybe even investigations, and students are upset and parents are upset. And look, let's face it, there's a lot attached to your performance in your organic chemistry class, if you're pre-med, pre-dental, engineering, whatever. But your professors would much rather give everyone in that class an A. I assure you. They're not trying to weed anyone out. Okay, there's no conspiracy here against you. To do well in the test, you should study up to the very last minute before a test. Never. Never. I'll talk more about that towards the end of this presentation. Reread the chapters in the textbook. For what purpose? You've already read them once or twice. Why would you want to continue to reread them? You either got the information that the chapters were trying to convey or that the author was trying to convey, or you didn't. If you didn't, go to some other source or material. Do it another way. Why bother just rereading the same information that for whatever reason you're not processing? Read the reviews of your professor on ratemyprofessor.com. Don't do that. Look, be smart here, okay? In general, who is critical of their professor on ratemyprofessor.com? Do you think it's the students who got A's and B's? No, it's the students who got C's, D's, and F's. And they probably have some ownership in getting those grades. Okay, so why would you want to bias yourself against your professor by reading someone else's complaints when it very well may be the case that they didn't do well because of what they did or didn't do, all on their own? Okay, ratemyprofessor.com has very, very limited value. You must recognize this, especially since it's anonymous. All right. So after you put a big X, a big red X through the well-intentioned advice, how are you going to approach your organic chemistry class? Let's talk about the role of memorization. What you see here and on the next slide, right, are a series of chemical reactions, organic transformations. These are overall transformations. This is not reaction mechanism. And these are all hydride reductions of ketone carbonyls to the secondary alcohol. Very, very common reaction of this functional group, the ketone carbonyl. Carbonyl being the carbon-oxygen double bond that you see in these molecules. And these molecules have other functional groups that are not affected under these conditions. So you can, if you're determined to, memorize these reactions, excuse me, and these structures and these conditions, okay? And here are some more, and you can try and memorize these too. And you can keep going and going and going because there are literally thousands of hydride reductions of ketone carbonyls to secondary alcohols that you can find, and you can try to memorize them all if you are so inclined. But why would you do that when you can do this? This is the reaction mechanism for the hydride reduction, the borohydride reduction of ketone carbonyls to give ultimately the corresponding secondary alcohols way at the bottom right. Okay? And this requires some effort to learn. I won't say memorize, to learn, because this is a detailed reaction mechanism, and one has to be very precise about the mechanistic arrows and what's an electron deficient center, what's an electron rich center, and so on and so forth. However, if you spend time knowing this, you can predict the products of all those reactions that you otherwise would have memorized. You can generate the examples without memorizing them, right? Because you understand the process and it makes sense to you, all right? This is where you want to put your effort, not into specific transformations, this is where you want to put your effort. So this is just one example. And fortunately, modern organic chemistry these days, because of our much greater understanding of reaction mechanism, is now taught conceptually and mechanistically, and is almost never taught via a rote memorization approach. And it can be very hard for students to leave something that is like an old friend, right? Memorization has served them well in high school. It served them well, perhaps, in general chemistry in their freshman year. It will not serve you in organic chemistry. Take my word for it. There's just too much content. Here are some final tips that I could offer the student about to take their first organic chemistry class. Study, but don't overstudy every evening. So it's way better to, put in 45 minutes, maybe an hour on your organic chemistry homework or reading or lab. Don't leave all that time until Friday evening and try to cram everything in. And don't overstudy, right? Your professor knows that you have other courses and other responsibilities and maybe a job during college and a personal life. They actually know this, right? And again, they don't want to set you up for failure because it reflects poorly on them. So if you're spending 2, 3, 4 hours an evening, you're doing something wrong. You're not spending your time efficiently. Don't overstudy, but do a little bit every evening. Latch on to something fascinating. What do I mean by that? I promise you, okay, look, organic chemistry is the chemistry of what? Living systems, right? It's the basis for biology and biochemistry and molecular biology, right? Who doesn't find some aspect of living systems fascinating? Nobody. So find something in your organic chemistry course that you can relate to something that truly fascinates you, and I promise it will make the entire difference in your outlook and your attitude towards the course. Form study groups. Very smart students who have too much to do, like for instance, law school students, medical school students, other professional schools, right? You think you have a lot of work now. What you're doing is challenging for you now, okay? But believe me, it only becomes much more challenging, and the volume of work only doubles and triples and quadruples. What students do is they kind of divide and conquer. They form study groups with friends, or maybe not with friends, or with other individuals that can complement their own particular interests and skill sets, right? In law school, for instance, the reading requirements are tremendous. And so, for instance, one student in your study group may be assigned to outline a certain chapter on contracts, and another student may be assigned to outline a certain chapter on procedure. And then you meet with your study groups and you exchange outlines and notes and test each other and discuss the material. Very effective, as long as everyone makes an effort. Okay, this doesn't work, of course. Group work, okay, can be wonderful, but it can also be a ticket for some students to sit around and just benefit from the work of others. Don't let that happen. Choose your study group partners well. Don't forget the payoff. What do I mean by that? Why are you taking organic chemistry? You might say, well, because I have to. I'm pre-med or pre-dent. Yeah, but what do you expect to get out of it? Well, a good grade. All right, good. Let's keep extending that. Okay, do you think there might be more value to the course than just a good grade? Well, the answer is there is tremendous value in mastering this particular subject, because to do so will train your brain like no other subject there is. You will learn deductive logic. You will learn inductive logic. You will learn to evaluate evidence and come to conclusions and not over-conclude. You will learn so many things that have far-reaching implications into anything you do. Even if you become a poet, mastering organic chemistry will be helpful to you, I promise. Thousands of others have mastered the subject, so keep that in mind. Okay, this goes back to you don't have to be a genius. This is not an impossible subject. It is a challenging subject, no question about it, because of the breadth and the content and the parameters and the variables. Okay, but there are lots of other subjects that are equally challenging. I assure you. Focus on the mechanisms and not the memorization, and apply logic. It's got to make sense, and be confident when you in your applications of logic to solving problems in organic chemistry. If your solution seems sound to you and you've reviewed it and you've tested it and it meets the requirements as best you can tell, then go with that answer. Okay? Be confident in your own ability to apply logic to a problem and have it make sense to you. I could go on and on and on about this. I think you can tell, but I'm going to stop here, and I hope that you take some of these tips to heart. Now, it's ironic, isn't it, that at the very beginning of this presentation, what did I tell you? I said, don't listen to other people's advice. Well, I'm asking you to listen to my advice, okay, because I am in a position to know. Okay, your cousin in med school, I'm sure, is a lovely person, and hopefully will make a wonderful doctor. Okay, but they're not an expert in the teaching and learning of this subject the way I am. So I promise you, these are good tips that you can count on. All right. Remember, for live tutoring in organic chemistry, just email me at david.jeffrey422@gmail.com. I hope you've enjoyed this video.